Hello and welcome to this video where I'm going to build out a whole invoice processing system that has a front end, also has a back end, and this is going to be deployed to the web using Google Cloud, and we're going to build it entirely using Google's IDE called Antigravity. So what's the whole point of this? We're going to be able to upload any invoice we want, and we're going to go extract all that information from an invoice and put it nice and neatly into a database. And this is going to be a full-on application that I'm going to use Google Antigravity to build, and I'm not going to write a single line of code myself. So one of the really cool things about Google Antigravity is it's basically an AI-powered coding assistant, and I'm going to run through step by step how to use Antigravity to build out this application. And one of the things I notice many people skip when they're making these kind of videos is they never actually go and deploy the solution. So what our channel is about over here is we're going to try build stuff using AI that's actually going to make you money. And if you're not going to be able to deploy the solution, no one's going to be able to use it, right? If you're going to try build this for a client, no one's ever going to be able to actually go and use it. So that's why we're going to deploy it in this video. So who am I and why am I making this video? So my name is Yash and I run my own AI automation agency where I sell solutions like this for many, many thousands of dollars. And this has led to me leading a life that I absolutely love. I get to travel around the world and work here. This is from Thailand, where I'm actually working from this really cool cafe with one of the best views. And also here's me with a monkey in Bali, where I get to work from all these really cool places because of my job. And because of that, during my travels, a lot of people told me, how do you do this? How do you actually go about building these automations, etc.? So therefore I have this YouTube channel to teach people how to do this. I touched on this a bit, but my actual goal is to show you how to build AI automations that people actually pay for. I also break down an anti-gravity framework that I have that helps you create valuable automations like this with zero technical knowledge. And I also have a community if that is something you're interested in starting your own AI automation agency. All right, so let's get cracking. I'm going to flick over to the step-by-step guide that I said I'd already made. You can find this in my community, and essentially it's literally how you can build any anti-gravity app step by step. And we've done all the technical specifications and everything for you. So it's a super, super easy way to build out anything you need in anti-gravity. So let's go through step one, right? So we need to decide what we want to build. For example, an invoice extractor tool. So this is exactly what we are building today. It's a tool that's going to enable you to extract information from invoices. A lot of companies manually still receive hundreds or thousands of invoices every single day, and they manually pull out all the numbers and put them into a system, right? It's a waste of time and it's really, really long. So what we're going to do is build an AI-powered tool that's going to grab all the information from the invoice, take all the specific variables that we need, such as the total amount that's due to be paid, and we're going to put this all into a really cool application. So we've already done step one. We've decided what we want to build. Now we're going to go to step two. We have this idea, right? But we have zero actual in-depth knowledge on exactly how we're going to build it. So that's why we're going to use prompt one to define exactly what we're going to build. So I've got a tab over here called prompts. If you flick over here, and here is prompt one, figure out what we're building. And it's super, super simple. You just need to copy this prompt all over here. I'm going to copy it right like this. Oh, it's quite a long prompt. There we go. And let me just copy all of this. Awesome. We've copied the prompt. We're going to go to Google Gemini, and I'm going to paste this prompt in and just click enter. And now it's going to go through a process where it's going to ask me a bunch of different questions about what I want to build, and ultimately it's going to give me an output. Now, one of the cool things whenever you're building an application, and if you're technical, you'll know this, you basically need a document, normally it's called a PRD, which will give you all the information you need for what you want to build. And what we're going to do for the first part, until we actually go to building, step basically 1 to 4 is essentially developing this PRD, so then Antigravity knows exactly what to build. If you do not develop a PRD or a document that outlines everything you need, then the build's going to be a mess. You're not going to know where each thing goes, and when you're building an anti-gravity, you don't want to mess because it can be really hard to reconfigure things. So by doing these first 4 steps, you're going to save a bunch of time. So this is the output from the prompt. Hi there, I'd love to help you scope out your automation project for Google Antigravity. To make sure we build exactly what we want, I'll walk through the steps with you step by step. To get started, can you describe the manual process you're looking to automate in your own words? So I'm going to write down basically an overview of what I think in my head I want to automate. So let's go through this. So I want to automate extracting information from invoices. So a lot of businesses spend a lot of time grabbing certain data fields from invoices. I want to build one that you just enter the invoice in kind of like a place where we can upload the invoice. It then does this automation in the background where it grabs all the information we need, and then it puts it all neatly into like a database where we can see it. We can also see the invoice on the left-hand side, and then all the information that the automation has extracted. And also we should be able to export the information into a CSV file. So there we go. That's kind of the idea I have for this automation. So let's push that through to Antigravity, and this should give us some ideas of exactly what we're looking to build. So now it's going to ask me what fields we need extracted. This is not something I had even thought of when I had my idea, but this is something that's super important to like get an overall scope, right? So I am going to say, what fields do you reckon we should extract? I'm thinking like 5 to 10 fields, and let's see what it comes back with. Okay, so it came back with a few fields. I'm cool with this. Let's just go with this. So I'm going to say, sure, these fields look great. Let's go with these fields look great. Let's go with that. Now, another action point you have here is, if you've ever built AI automations before, you're of course at an advantage to if you've never built AI automations before. Like what you could do here is make this even more complex, where you can say, I'm going to give you the fields, right, that I want extracted. And then you create those certain fields on like a regular recurring basis. So it's like an application where you can enter that. I want vendor name, invoice number, subtotal, total amount, and also like the date, basically. And you can enter this into the application, and it will extract those fields for you rather than having a defined set of fields. So the user can actually change that. Now, I'm not going to go that complex here, but you can just tell it to this AI over here, and it will go and create you a system that's similar to this, but different depending on how complex you want your system to be. So because of the sake of the fact it's a YouTube video, I don't want it to be like 5 hours long. I'm going to build out something that's a little bit more simple, which is going to be here, which is a more manageable scope, which is just 8 items, and these are set and fixed in stone. So sure, these fields look great. Let's go with that. So we got the fields all ready to go here. And now, obviously, again, something I didn't think of was how are we actually going to go and enter these fields in, right? And I'm thinking, let's go with PDF documents only. Again, it depends on your requirements. And again, if you're building this for someone, then you would have to get all these requirements from them beforehand by asking all of these super intuitive questions. And once you have all of the requirements, you can just enter them into this prompt over here. So I'm just going to PDF documents only, so it can start to build out our documents using this. Okay, and now this is the field where I'm going to get rid of complexity. So it's asking whether we want to just upload one document at a time or multiple. Now, it's going to be a bit useless to upload one document at a time and really tedious. So I definitely think being able to upload multiple PDFs in bulk is going to be great. So let's go multiple PDFs around 50 at a time. You can obviously change this. I'm just going 50 at a time because I think that's the most I'd ever use. So multiple PDFs around 50 at a time sounds about right. And let's see what the AI does in the meantime. Okay, and now it's asking some UI things, right? So here it's saying, do we want like a main dashboard where we're going to see all the invoices in like kind of like a table? Or will it just show like everything, basically the whole invoice, all the extracted information, maybe in like a visualizer of the invoice? Or do we want to have it so it's kind of like a split screen where you can click on each row and it shows you all the information rather than having it like a huge table? I think it'll be much neater if we just have a table, right? And when we click into it, that will show all the information, and then we just have like a status and an update. So let's go main dashboard, and we want like a showing key data. And when we click on it, we get more information. Cool, let's go with that. So this probably sounds like a better UI standpoint. And now we're going to let the AI go and design the rest of the stuff for us. On the main dashboard, what columns would we like to see? File name, status. Yeah, sure. Let's go with file name, the status, the total amount, and the date uploaded. I think just those are fine. So there we go. We've got that going now. Let's see what it does next. There we go, nailed it. So over here, it's asking basically, do you want to be able to edit the dates or do you want to trust the AI 100%? I think we should be able to edit them if we need to. So therefore I got a, sure, we just want to manually edit the fields if we need to. I hope this is one of the last questions now. So essentially it's saying, do you want to select when you download a CSV or do you just want it to download everything? I think selecting is good. Downloading everything, which is not a practical thing. So I'm just going to selecting is better. Right, so this is awesome. So now it's basically grabbing all the data that I never thought of and all the things that I would normally assume. And when you build out something in Antigravity, it will assume things. And once it assumes things, changing them after the fact can cause bugs. Therefore, if we get everything ready and prepped before we actually go into building anything, you're way more likely to get this automation done, first of all, a lot faster, and it will be a lot more robust. Okay, so I just answered a few more questions, such as, is this going to be like a dashboard that you're just going to export things and then get rid of them, or is it going to be an archive? I want it to be an archive of all our invoices, so I wrote an archive is good. And then it says processing 50 invoices might take a minute. Do you want like an email, basically when it's all done processing? I think it's just cool to stay on the dashboard and watch the status update. I don't think an email is necessary at this point. And also, if there's an error, where should it go? And then I put a needs review with the reason it errored. So that's why if, like, for example, the file is not an invoice, then it's not going to be able to extract all the information and it's going to error, right? So that's why a needs review with the reason it errored is probably quite a powerful way to do things. So now we have the project scope summary, right? This has all the information that we just spoke to it about. And this is awesome. And this is going to be gold for when we're actually going to build out our thing. So let's go back to our step-by-step guide. So we're done with step 2. Now we're on to step 3. We're going to use prompt 2 to determine how we're going to go and build this, what tools we're going to use. And a large portion of this is already done because we have a predefined tech stack in prompt 2. However, like, for example, there are going to be certain APIs that we might need to use that might be different automation to automation. So therefore, prompt 2 is basically going to identify all of that, like what the front end is going to look like, what the back end APIs we might use. For example, I'm going to use a tool called Mistral in this automation. I really like the Mistral OCR technology. This is from when, I've been doing AI automation for a while, so I know a few of the tools, but also Gemini has a great knowledge of all the different tools you can use. So therefore, that's why we're going to go through prompt 2 and we're going to add all of these specific details in. So let's flick over to prompt 2, copy this. Okay, so I copied through prompt 2 and we're going to click go and let's see how this turns out. Awesome, so it's asking me for the project scope document right here. So if I flick back to our other chat, I click copy response and I paste this in and I click enter. Now here we go, it's got the full project scope that we just identified over here. And now it's going to define the requirements and it's going to think about how we're going to go and build this automation out, right? Okay, so here we go. It's giving us some tool stack recommendations. So for the database, we're going to be using Superbase. So again, if you've ever built AI automations before, then this will be very familiar to you. If you haven't, then you're probably not going to know what Superbase is. Superbase is essentially like Excel, but like on steroids. It's like a really, really cool way to have any sort of database as the back end of your automation. It does everything from like user access passwords, that loads of applications where you log in using your password and username into loads of different tools online. It can do that. It can store PDFs. It's basically literally like a database but on steroids. So it's recommending Superbase, which is one of the options I've already inbuilt into our prompt 2 over here. So we're going to use Superbase for the back end, which is super, super cool. And we're going to use some of this processing step background. So we need to ingest and render the PDFs. I'm going to be super honest, I don't know how to do any of this. I don't know how to code in Python, or I don't really have any information with Python libraries either. So I largely do trust the AI on this point when it comes to it, and it's never really let me down. So we're going to go and I'm just going to agree with whatever tools it did for ingesting the actual PDFs, which is great. Then the AI extraction and analysis. Now, I know way too many AI tools for my own good. So I'm actually going to change the way it does this. So again, you can just go with what it does. It's essentially this way it's going to give the PDF to Gemini and it's going to ask it to extract it, which is great. However, I want to have it a bit more robust than that. So I'm going to say something different. I'm going to say, hey, it all looks good. I just want to change the extraction details to, let's go with Mistral AI for actually extracting the details from the PDF. And then I want to pass that into GPT, ideally a mini model, and this will then go grab the details from the Mistral extraction. Perfect. So now this is going to use Mistral to extract all the information from the invoice, and it's just going to give it to us all in this markdown text format. And then from there, we're going to use GPT to just pull out all the figures that we actually need. So that is super, super cool. And then structured, we need to make sure that we have it in a strict JSON format. I'm just going to listen to it on that point. That's awesome. CSV input. Again, it's going to use some Python libraries that I just really don't know much about. And I think the rest is all fine. So the rest you have gone with is all fine. There we go, nailed it. So now it's going to come up and create a whole tool stack recommendation for us. So that's all going to be done nice and neatly. So now we have all the tools that we're going to use. That is normally variable automation to automation lined out over here. Now we need to go and generate a prompt that we're going to go give Antigravity to actually start the building process. So I promise you we're close to building now. This stuff is super, super important that a lot of people skip, and then they're like, why does my project not work? Well, it's because you haven't done enough research before you've gone and built out your project. So we're going to go through and go to step 4. Done step 3. Now we're on to step 4, which is to use prompt 3 to generate backend instructions for Antigravity. So if you're not too sure about like software development and how it works, essentially there is something called a backend and then a front end. The back end is all the stuff that happens in the background that you can't see. And then the front end is all the really cool things that you can see. So like, for example, uploading the document into our application, there's gonna be like a cool little circle where it's gonna say upload any file you want. I'm sure you've seen this online before. When you drag and drop that in, that's all front end, the stuff you can see. And then once you click submit, that all gets pushed to the back end, and the back end can operate and do all the different things like that. When we're using like Mistral API to extract the information and use GPT to basically go and grab all the things that Mistral has extracted, that's all back-end stuff. You cannot see that, and the user cannot see that. However, it can see the table and the database, which is all the front end. That's the main distinction between the two. Okay, so back to the step-by-step, let's go and do step 4. So we're going to go back to our prompts, and we're going to go to prompt 3, which is our back-end one. Let's go and do that. Okay, so I've copied my prompt 3, but also just reference these usage notes where I say use prompts 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7 in the same AI chat to preserve context better. So we have 2 chats. Number 1 is they asked us like a million questions and it got everything sorted for us. And then we have this one over here, which is essentially the one where we've got the whole context of what tools we're going to use, where we discussed about using Mistral AI. So I want to use this chat here where we entered in prompt 2, and I'm going to paste this one in over here. Where we entered in, yes, prompt 2, and I'm going to paste in prompt 3 over here, and this is going to go and define us a prompt for our backend to go and give Antigravity. Okay, so we have the backend prompt all done. All I did was literally enter in prompt 3, and bada bing, bada boom, it came with a really nice backend prompt. And that's literally step 4 done. And now we have step 5. We need to add our Agents.md file into Antigravity. Now, this is going to make no sense if you've never used Antigravity or any agentic IDE platform before. But essentially, we've got this file called Agents.md. And what that's going to do is it's going to give some really tight instructions that we're going to go to give Antigravity. So let's fire up Antigravity first. If you don't have Antigravity installed, just go to Google like this and type in Antigravity. Go over here, and then you can just download it using this link over here, where there will be a lovely download button up here, or down here, download for Mac OS if you're on Mac, or Windows for Windows. Awesome. So now that you've downloaded and you've set it up, you should come to a page that looks like this. This is basically what Antigravity looks like when you haven't built anything. It's a brand new kind of account, and this is a brand new project that we're going to be starting. So you want to click over here and click Open Folder. And essentially open it in any kind of folder on your laptop that you would like. I have this folder called Antigravity YT videos. So this is where I upload all my different YouTube videos. So I'm going to click open over here, and bada bing, bada boom, we have Antigravity that's opened up. And as you can see here, the agent is loading up. This is going to be our AI agent that's going to essentially build out this whole automation for us. So here we are on Antigravity. And what we're going to do is we're going to add in that agents.md file, as if we remember that is our step 5. So we want to come over here and we want to click new file, right? And over here, I'm going to call it agents.md. Now what MD is essentially a markdown file. This is one of the ways you can hold in text. And here we are over here. And I've got an agents.md tab over here. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to copy all the different things from our agents.md tab like this. And I'm going to flick back to our Antigravity here. I'm going to paste it in. So here we go. This is our agents.md tab right over here. And this includes all the different information that we're going to go and give Antigravity to actually go out and build our project. So I'm going to click Command S, and this is going to go and save this file. If you don't save the file, basically Antigravity won't know how to use it. So there we go, that's saved. And I've closed that down. And now we're going to go talk to this agent to go and build out our project. Okay, so we move to step 6. This is to build out the backend in Antigravity using the instructions from step 4, right? So we have everything from our prompt 3, which is in step 4. The here is to build it out. I go over here, copy this down, and I'm going to paste it into our Antigravity over here. I'm just going to double check that, make sure everything looks right. So it's giving a bunch of API endpoints. We're going to ingest it. We're going to use Mistral, and we're going to do intelligent extraction. Yes, that's all fine. Follow project structure. I'm just going to put this as very important, just to make sure it follows our Agents.md file. And of course, it has a tech stack, which is in the Agents.md file as well. So let's click send. And here we go. I'm using the model Claude Opus 4.6, and it's in planning mode over here. So you have a bunch of different models you can use in Antigravity. I highly recommend Gemini 3 Pro High if you're going to do anything complex, or Claude Opus. I find Claude Opus is a little bit more robust, so it builds a lot more efficiently and it doesn't make as many mistakes as Gemini, but it is more expensive to run. So it just depends. I normally flick between the two. And if you have anything really fast that you'd like to do, then I recommend like Gemini 3 Pro or Gemini 3 Flash, the low version or Flash version. That's fine. And then of course we have the planning and agent kind of different ways. I like planning. It largely does deep research and it does bug fixes really well as well. So I normally don't touch this. I kind of always leave it on planning. And the model, I sometimes switch between Opus 4.6 and Gemini 3 Pro High. There is something to note on Antigravity is that you have different plans and that allows you more or less limits with the agent. And one of the things with Antigravity is Google has multiple plans. So if you're on a higher plan, you can talk to Antigravity more using this function over here. However, once you've run out of your limits, your Antigravity limits, basically, that means you can no longer send messages and basically you have to halt production on your product until you've actually gone and waited the time limit until you can go and send more messages, essentially. Okay, so while this is running and it's building all the things we need in the background, let me go and flick over to our next step, right? So we have step 7, use prompt 4 to generate front-end instructions for Antigravity. So we're gonna go do that exactly the same way. And remember, this was one of the things we need to keep in the same AI chat. So I'm gonna flick over to prompt 4 over here. I'm gonna copy this. I've copied my prompt 4. I'm going to paste it into the same chat we had with the tool stack recommendation and with the backend prompt, and I'm going to click go. And this is then going to go and generate us a cool thing for front end. So first of all, I think it's going to ask us a few questions about what we want the front end to look like. And then it's going to essentially give us a prompt for building the front end into Google Antigravity. There's also a few more things that I want you to do when you're going to generate a front end using Google Antigravity that I'm going to show you. I've also flicked back to Antigravity and I can also see it's still working on generating a few different things. So let's just let it go and do that. In the meantime, we can work on this. So I have a project scope, tool stack from our previous steps, understanding what we're building. Let's design it. So it knows we're going to have a main dashboard and upload experience, and it's going to give us a few options. So let's see what the options are. We can a dedicated drag and drop area, a clean dashboard with a prominent upload invoice button, uploaded stepper page that redirects to the dashboard once processing starts. I actually like option B, so let's go with that. And let's paste that in. Awesome. So we're going to go with option B, which is essentially like a little button. We're going to click it and we can add in more invoices. Okay, and since I left you, I've basically answered all the other questions. It essentially asks questions about how the statuses should look and also whether we should add some additional columns in. I thought it'd be quite useful to add the vendor name and invoice number directly into the table, just so when you're looking at the table at a glance, you can kind of see what you're looking at and clicking onto them. And also, we obviously want statuses, and I want each status to be color-coded. So for example, processing could be like green, or sorry, completed could be green, processing could be like blue, needs review could be yellow, error could be red, for example. There's a bunch of different examples over here. So I said, that's what I said. I said we should have both vendor name and invoice would be useful. And we want simple badges with colored pills, which is essentially what it gave us here. And it also gave us two options for the split screen review. And I just selected option A over here. And lastly, do we want to highlight on the invoice where the AIs pick things from? For now, in this iteration, that sounds a bit complicated and I didn't want to do that. So I just said, keep it all simple. Let's just leave the invoice exactly as it is when we uploaded it. So the user can zoom in and find out what we need to find out. And then also the PDF controls for like a kind of, when we're viewing the PDF from our dashboard, how that's all going to look. And therefore we have the PDF controls over here. And with that, basically, I'm saying it needs to have zoom so we can kind of see all the different details that we're extracting. Super useful. And here we go. We have a front-end design specification. And over here, we're going to have the dashboard. We're going to have the split screen review. So there's kind of two main pages here that we're really going to be using. This over here, it's not like some super huge application with a massive front end with multiple pages. A little bit more simple to build, but it needs to be built right and it needs to look pretty. So that's why we're using all of this, and it's giving some more information about how it should implement the front end. There is two more things I would do with the front end, but first I think we have to work with Antigravity now to sort some of the stuff out. So let's flick back to Antigravity. So let's go through exactly what it did. So it analyzed our Agents.md file, and then it says the workspace is currently empty except for that file. So it's a big project, so it's going to create some tasks. And over here, it created an implementation plan, right? So if I open this, you can see over here, one of the cool things with Antigravity is it always creates an implementation plan when there's a huge kind of project that it needs to undergo. This is to make sure it doesn't forget anything and is less likely to hallucinate when it builds anything. You have over here, it has a huge different implementation plan with all the different APIs that it's going to need to do and all the tests that it might need to do as well. So essentially that, I have it as like kind of auto review because I don't really understand a lot of these things since I don't code particularly. So if you code, then you probably would want to look through this, but I don't. So there we go. We have this all sorted out with the implementation plan, and then it's going to go and code a bunch of different things for us, and then we have a walkthrough. And what this walkthrough is things it can't do that we need to go and do. So if I open up the walkthrough over here, you can see we have a bulk invoice processor, what was built, and it kind of gives you a nice little example of what's being built over here. And then, it even gave us like a little table where you can see like a process map, which is super, super cool. And now it's going to tell us things that we need to do. So we need to go to Superbase and we need to run this SQL in our Superbase. Okay, so here we are on Superbase. I, of course, have a project and account already set up, but essentially you can come to superbase.com and you can set up an account. It's all entirely free. And once you've done that, you can click start your project. And I am creating a new project right here. I'm going to call it YT Antigravity. The project name can be Invoice Processing, YT Video, right? And then I'm going to create a password and I'm going to enable Data API. So I'm going to go ahead and do all of this stuff. Here we go. We have our project all set up on Superbase, which is going to act as like our database for this whole project. And if I flick back to Antigravity, we can see over here, it tells us to run this SQL in your Superbase SQL editor. So we've created our project over here. And if I look over here on Superbase, you can see SQL editor over here. I'm going to go here and I'm going to click run. And this will then allow us to run our SQL and it will basically create a table for us. So if I flick back over to here, it should create a table called Invoices, and we can see it has the ID, the file name, the upload date, the storage path, basically error message. Basically what Antigravity has over here, and it's going to create our table exactly how Antigravity wants us to do it. So there we go. We have a table all set up, and the next step now is to actually go and connect all of the tools we have to our project. And how you're going to do that is by in this .env file over here. This .env file is going to hold all your API keys for all the different tools that we're going to be using. So as we are aware, we're probably going to be using Superbase. So it needs the Superbase URL and the Superbase key. It's going to need the Superbase bucket name, which it already knows as Invoices because it already created it over here, as you can see. It's going to need the Mistral API key, and it's going to need the OpenAI API key as well. This essentially allows it access to all these different accounts to use our credits to actually perform all the actions we need, such as extracting the invoice information. So I'm going to go and give it all this different information. I'm not going to show you this information on YouTube because it's very private information. You can use my API keys for like your own projects and charge me. So therefore I'm not going to show you, but I'm going to go and enter all this information in right now. So to find all your Superbase information, such as the URL and the API key, you kind of just go to settings at the bottom here and then API keys, and it should all be there. This time we can work through some of our front end stuff that I was talking about before. So a lot of building on this, if you want to build quickly, is to multitask. You need to flick through what you're doing here and also flick through what you're doing in Antigravity at the same time. So we're over here, we have all the different front end parts that we've got. And there's one more thing I want to do. So I want to go to Dribbble, right? Dribbble is a platform that has a bunch of different designs. And because Antigravity is multimodal, which means it can accept photos and videos and a bunch of other things, I want to give it inspiration photos for our front end design. This means our design is going to be really beautiful in exactly the way we want it to be. So I'm going to go over here and I am going to go for, let's go with Invoice Tracker. Let's see if it actually works. If they have something that's super niche, but we're going to see if they have anything that kind of looks like an invoice tracker. Okay, so I typed in table UI and I found this UI, which looks really cool. So I'm just going to go and I'm going to grab a screenshot of it. There we go. So we've got this UI that I'm going to give it for the actual table. And were there any other parts to us? So we have the uploading page, we have the UI for the actual table, and perhaps there was one more thing that I seem to be forgetting. Let me just double check. So if I go back over here to our front end, we have the dashboard, and we have the state, which is all fine. Ah, yes, and the split screen review page. So I'm going to try and have a look at maybe a cool design I can find on Dribbble that has that. And I also found a nice little document viewer, right? So when I type in document viewer UI over here, I think this looks cool, right? So we have our actual invoice over here and then all the different kind of information we need on the right. So I'm just going to screenshot this as well. So this will be useful for when we're going to go and create the front end. So we've got the two different photos that we also want to upload that accompanies this prompt over here. Now, the next step is, let's go back to Antigravity, because you always want to make sure you build a back end before you go and build the front end. We've gone over here and we have everything here. It says, great, there's a README, which has all the different information I think we're going to need to go through over here. So we need to first of all create a storage bucket called Invoices in Superbase. I think it told me to do this in the last step, but I forgot. Let's go first and set up the storage container. So I'm going to flick over to Superbase and add this in. So we come to Superbase and then we go to the storage part over here, create a new bucket. And I think it was very specific of what it told me to call it. I think it told me to call it Invoices. So I'm just going to copy and paste that directly in. And I'm going to click Create. And there we go. We have a bucket called Invoices. So I think it'll be happy with that. Now we have time to go and run the back end. So let's go and start to run this stuff using our terminal. If you're on a Mac, we're going to go over here to terminal and we're going to click new terminal. And here we go. We have a terminal directly opened up in Antigravity and it's going to tell us what to run, right? So let's go and run this stuff over here. So if I copy this, paste this, there we go. So I got the application running. I actually had an error, which was like, it says I had another project open, but I was getting this error over here. And essentially it said because it was running it in the background, there was some error. But anyways, it's fine. And now look, we just put through our command and now the application startup is running just using this. So awesome. We're ready to go. Okay, so now that the application's running, I want to test it out ourselves. This is kind of best practice. So I was a little confused on how to test it. So I just asked it, okay, I'm non-technical, just tell me how to test it, right? It said to go here, which is this link. Let me see if I can find it right here. Localhost 800 docs. This basically means the whole thing's running on our laptop over here. And it's giving me a step-by-step. So we're going to go to Invoices/upload. So we're over here, Invoices/upload. I'm going to choose a file. Click this one, which is an invoice I have already downloaded. I'm going to click Execute, right? I'm just following the instructions step-by-step over here. And it should give me an ID. Right here we have the ID. Let's copy this. Let's go down to /process. So you can see over here, I can open this. You can see it goes here, go down to Invoices/process. And it says to click it and try it out. So let's do this. So if I click on the string, let's paste our ID into here and click execute. Now hopefully this should not return an error. It didn't. Cool, it's all doing its thing. Process has started, processing count 1. And this was successful. Close this. And then the last thing it does is to say, get invoices, invoice ID. So get invoices, invoice ID. And let's paste the ID here and let's click execute. And we can see over here, it's returned all the numbers that we wanted to return. Now let's compare this to the actual invoice. So let me open that up. This was the invoice we extracted. You can see Superstore and it grabbed the vendor name Superstore. It has the invoice number. It also has the order number 50.10, 50.10, 48.71, 48.7. There we go. You see it extracted the invoice perfectly. So the back end of this system is set up nicely. So we've tested it. Everything works great. The next thing now we've got to do is build the front end. And luckily we did everything for the front end already. So let's go and check this out. Okay, so here is our front end design specification. I'm going to copy that, flick over to Antigravity. I actually much prefer Gemini to build out front ends versus Claude. I think it just builds them out much nicer. So that's why I'm sticking with Gemini for that. We're going to go planning and let's go through and add our images in. So I'm going to go do that. So added in 2 images. These are to represent number 1, the dashboard data, and the second to represent the view with the invoice on the left and then all the data that's been extracted on the right. Use these 2 as inspiration for your front-end design. Cool. So I've added in those 2 things. That's all cool. That's all done. And then let's click enter and let's hope it builds out a really cool front end for us to use. Cool. So that's all been sent off. Now, the next thing I want to do is work on the next step of our guide. So if I flick back to steps over here, we have done our front end, and then now we're on step 8, which is to go and build out the front end. And we've also got step 9, which we can start to get a jump on, which is to use prompt 5 to generate testing instructions. So I'm going to flick back over to here, get prompt 5. I'm going to copy this whole thing. And again, I think this should go into the same chat as the ones where we use prompt 4, 3, and 2. Yeah, okay, so here's the prompt. I'm just going to paste it into our chat over here, and hopefully this should give us a really cool testing specification, so we can give that to Antigravity so it can actually test our automation once we're fully done. This is so we're really rapidly making sure that we have a production-ready application that we can actually give to clients and make money off. So that's what we're going to do here. And bada bing, bada boom, here we go. We have the full invoice system fully set up. If I flick back to Antigravity, essentially it spent about half my life trying to make this front end, but eventually it got there. It didn't face any errors, which was great. It did within itself, but I didn't have to sort anything out, so I don't really count that. And then essentially I've run it in the terminal over here, so I just entered in a couple commands that it gave me, such as this one and this one. And once I entered in those commands, it gave me the local link to go to. I went to the local link, and here we go. Now, and I'm going to test it out literally live. I haven't played with this at all. So if I click on this, let's see what pops up. Nice. It doesn't show a PDF loaded. I'm thinking that might be a problem with perhaps I haven't uploaded it from here. So let's click upload, and let's try drag and drop our invoice over here. Click open, and let's click upload one file, and let's see what happens. Okay, so the file's been uploaded and queued. So that uploaded invoice still saying queued. I've waited for about a minute and a half now, which means it's taking too long. I can see it's doing something here, but I don't have a clue. So I'm going to talk to Antigravity to say it's not working. So fix this bug. Hey, so it's not working. Essentially, I upload an item and that works perfectly. I upload an invoice and it works perfectly. However, it stays on queued. I can see it is doing this in terminal, but essentially nothing is coming through on the dashboard at all. Fix this, and let's see what it does. So I think it's in a loop or something. So I think it's going to try and fix that for us. So I'll get back to you once it gets back to me. Aha, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So if I click upload over here, and I click on this, and I upload the file, right? So this is uploading that same file, and now it's going to add it into a queued section. Now if I select this and click process, we can see over here the processing has started, and it's going to switch this into processed, and then it's going to essentially give us the output in a minute. So that's kind of how it works. I'm going to be super honest, I don't really like that. I just think it should process automatically without me needing to click process. There's another problem, is that the PDF doesn't load right now. So we're probably going to need to go fix that. Aside from that, I think everything else looks great. So I want to test one more thing, which is I want to export as a CSV, and let's see what happens. Cool, it downloaded the CSV. I'm going to open this up. Let's see if I can open it up in Google. When I click export as a CSV, it does actually export all the numbers really nicely. So I'm happy with that. What I am not happy with is the fact that we have to select and then click process. I'm also not happy with the fact that the invoice actual PDF doesn't pop up here. So let's fix those two things first, and then we can go into testing this thing. Okay, so there are two things I'm currently not happy with. The first thing is I'm not happy to click process every single time. I think it should just auto process when someone uploads a invoice in there, rather than having to click process manually. I also have noticed that the PDFs are not popping up in the viewer when I open up an invoice in the more granular view. Can you fix these two things? Okay, so I've sent these two things across. Hopefully Gemini should go and fix these two errors that we're currently facing. I think this was an intended, it was not a bug. This thing over here, let me flick up open my Chrome again. I think this thing's not a bug. This was meant to happen. Of course, the PDF viewer is a bug, so that will be cool to fix. Aside from that, the look is quite nice. It's supposed to be simple. You could make it a lot more complex than this. You could add like a sidebar, you could add more features, but it is literally just a one feature application. So it has everything. I also want to double check what's happening in Superbase as well. So let's go to the table, and we should see that this table, yes, you can see this table is being updated automatically, and that's what's being displayed here. Okay, sweet. So it said it's fixed it. Let's check this. Sometimes it doesn't fix it, and then we have to go back to it again. So let's click this. Let's actually upload the invoice again, and let's click upload the file, and let's see what happens. So we uploaded one invoice. Oh, it's processing straight away. This is very, very good. So I think it fixed this problem straight away. Now, my next thing is it going to have fixed the PDF issue? So let's wait for it to process. I wonder what happens when I view it when it's processing. I still think, oh, okay, there we go. It extracts all the information. It did that all automatically. However, there's still no PDF loaded. So I'm going to get it to fix that again. So let's do that. So let's go back to Antigravity and let's go. So the auto processing worked great. However, the PDF viewer is still not showing. Make sure you check this before you tell me it's fixed. You can use your Chrome viewer to double check that it's actually fixed. So for those of you guys that are new to Antigravity, it has this cool thing where it can access your Chrome tab. It can check the actual web page and make sure that the front end works perfectly. It's kind of a little buggy, but it works okay. So I'm going to try and use it in this feature over here. So I'm going to click enter here, and hopefully it can fix out that PDF viewing issue. And then I largely think this automation works perfectly. I will obviously going to still run some tests. So we have that test prompt that we created before. Let's actually flick to that right now while this is thing going. So this is like a whole testing prompt. Oh, there you can see Antigravity is working in my browser to actually check whether I've actually gone and fixed the viewing for the invoice thing. So while it checks that, I don't think I need to be on this page. This is the testing prompt that we're also going to paste into it. This is just to make sure that everything works, including all the edge cases that might not have tested here. And once that's done, it's pretty much ready for production. I could go and test more edge cases, but again, like this is not a client deliverable automation. It is each video. So I'm not going to sit there and test everything. It's quite boring. But essentially, this is how, you can develop a really, really cool system. And I haven't written a single line of code. So it's quite interesting. Okay, so I can see it fixed itself. It's doing some stuff, but I saw the PDF. And essentially what's happening here is I asked it to fix it. It didn't work. Then I asked it to fix it one more time. It didn't work. So then I switched the model to Claude Opus 4.6 thinking with planning on. And the third time I asked it to fix it, Claude managed to fix it itself. So now I think it's doing some testing in the background, but essentially you can see it. So let me see if I can open it up here. And if I open it, I think you'll be able to see the invoice PDF stored right here when it eventually opens. There we go, loading PDF. And let's have a drum roll. There we go. You can see the full PDF is over here. You can zoom in and zoom out and do whatever else you need to do, which is super, super cool. Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, this is now entirely fixed. It's got the full PDF coming through. It's pretty much done everything, back to dashboard buttons, and basically it looks super, super cool. So I'm also confident that it can extract from any invoice, and we will try that in a bit. However, now what I want to do is I want to run our testing prompt through it just to make sure everything works perfectly. So let's copy our testing prompt. Let's paste this into here. I'm going to switch back to Gemini 3 Pro High, and I'm going to click enter. The reason why I switch between the two models, Opus and Gemini, I think Google has more limits for Gemini than Opus, and I'm on the Pro plan, so I still have more credits, but I think Opus really eats into your credits really fast. That's why I use Gemini 3 Pro a lot of the time. Now, this is going to go and run its own tests in the background. And if anything goes wrong, it will heal itself, right? That's what's super, super cool about this. So then you're ready with like a really, really cool application that's like good to go. Okay, so as we can see, it ran all the tests. Again, it took another lifetime. I feel like I'm a year older. However, it went and did everything and all the tests pass. You can go and do your own manual testing as well. And I highly recommend it if you're going to deliver this to a client to make sure everything is perfect. However, I don't think you guys want to sit there and watch me test for about an hour and a half. So let's not do that. Instead, let's go to our next step. So we've done this, which is to test your automation using testing instructions and also manual testing. Then now what we want to do is we want to secure the automation with a basic authentication prompt. Because when we publish it to Google, which is kind of at this point when we deploy the actual automation, there's going to be a problem where anyone can access it. Anyone with a link can access it, which is not great. So we want to make sure we secure it so nobody else can access our automation except us. So we're going to go over here to prompt 6, which is going to be over here, which is the basic prompt. And we're going to copy all of this information over. Okay, and this prompt's a little different. We're not going to be pasting it into Gemini, but instead into Antigravity. And we're going to click enter. And let's take a look at what it does. And while it's doing that, let's check out the next step. So the next step is actually for deployment. And this is going to go into the same chat as the original one we had before. So let's grab our prompt number 7. This is our last prompt. And now we're in the aim of building out this tool. So if I scroll down and I grab this whole prompt over here, I go to Gemini, I paste it in. And now this one is going to give us a prompt for deployment. And what this is going to do is allow us to publish our automation to the internet using Google Cloud Run. And this means our clients can use it without having to have their laptop on all the time or to use terminal commands, which is just not super fun or user-friendly for non-technical people. So that's why this is going to be super useful for us to deploy. In the meantime, let's check on this. So it's still doing some generating things and it's probably fixing some bugs or whatever that's got in the background. And over here now we have Gemini actually generating a whole deployment prompt for us to give to Antigravity after it's done securing our application. Okay, so it says it's secured our application. I've gone to my .env file. You can see I added this auth username and auth password section over here, and you can see that's what it's told me to do right here. And now it's saying to open the app. So let's open this up in our browser. And it says not authenticated. Let me try click refresh. Okay, so it's just giving me a not authenticated error rather than giving me a place to actually type in my password. So let's have a look at why it's doing that. So when I click on opening up that link in my browser, there's just an error in the bottom right that says not authenticated, rather than actually asking for username and password. Okay, so here I'm basically complaining to it that it doesn't give me a pop-up to say that there's no username or password. I'm going to change the model back to 3 Pro High and let's send this across and see what it does. Oh, so it came up with the fix. Essentially, we were going to the wrong link. We were just using the front end instead of the back end as well. I don't know what that means, but basically it's told us a solution. And when I click on this link, it does take me to a page where it asks me for some authentication. The username is admin and the password is, what was it? Password 123, very secure. Password 123, click sign in. Let me just, why not? And here we go. We have full access to the application, but you can only get access to this if you have the username and password. So there we go. That is this and the authentication all set up. Now, the last thing is we need to go and deploy this. So as always with deployment, we go to our Antigravity page, we copy this over here and we flick over to here and we paste it. And then this should hopefully go and deploy our application to the web, which is super, super exciting because then it's finally all done and we have the whole application ready to go and you can deliver this to anyone you want. You can use it yourself without having to have your laptop on all the time. You can even access it on your mobile phone, which is incredible. There are so many different things you can do with this. So yeah. Okay, it's given me some instructions. So essentially we're ready for deployment. We need to, I'm hearing this deployment.sh, and then I need to just run the script here, probably in my terminal. So I will go and do that. And then I will get back to you with how it looks nice and shiny on the internet. Okay, so I ran into this error and Antigravity is giving me a solution to it. So it's saying to run the following command instead. So let's try that. This should open up a authentication page for my Google account. Okay, all logged in. Now it says to go with this command instead. So let's play this and let's see what happens. It says deploying from source. This looks better than what happened last time. So let's take a look and hopefully it can deploy it. Let's see, it says deploying from source requires an antivirus. Yes, let's deploy it there. Perfect. So it's just saying it's going to deploy on this server over here in the US. So that's fine with me. So now it's uploading our whole file to be deployed. So I'm just going to wait for that to happen. And there we go. Our project is deployed. You can see here, here's the link. So if I click on it and then if I click open, let's see what it does. So we can enter our username. My username is actually subscribe. If that's not a hint, I don't know what else is. And then the password is YouTube. Let's sign in. Ah, lovely. Internal server error. Okay, so here we are, it's all done, it's live and ready to go. So I didn't actually have to enter a password to enter this one, but I open it up onto an incognito browser. If I click this, and then if I paste our link in here, you can type in the username, which is subscribe, and also the password. And when I click sign in, there we go, we have the full all the different invoices all over here. And I'm going to click upload, and let's test this out, right? So I've got like 13 invoices. Let's go and click all of these and click open. And let's click upload 14 files, and let's see what it does. It says it's uploaded 14 invoices and they're all queued, and it's going to go one by one and go through every single one and process them for us. Now, there are some things you can do to make this a little faster. Perhaps we could make it run all at one go so it processes all of them in one simultaneous movement. There are some cool upgrades we could make to this automation, but for a first iteration, it is really, really cool. And as you can see here, it's extracting all the different invoices, all the different dates, and all the different prices over here, which are all super, super different. So there you go. That is how you can make an end-to-end invoice automation extraction system using Antigravity with a front end, a back end. We've deployed it. We've gone through a lot in this video, and I hope you found it useful. If you did, I'd really appreciate if you could interact with the video, whether it's drop a subscription, follow, or also perhaps like the video. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you in the next one.